What is going on YouTube? We are talking about the methods for combining both calisthenics and weights together in the same training program. So, before we answer the question, is it possible to combine calisthenics and weights? We first need to talk about differences and similarities. So, what a lot of people get confused and don't realize is that calisthenics and weight training as a whole are two different sports. The reason for that is that calisthenics is a sport of relative strength for the most part, and it uses leverage-based progression, whereas absolute strength is more about weights. Weights can sometimes be about relative strength, but for the most part, in most cases, it's a sport of absolute strength and has very linear progression. For example, you can add 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, plus 20. You can even go even smaller than that, add in 2.5 pounds. There are even micro plates, so you can add 1.25 pounds, a half pound, so extremely linear progression from workout to workout, day to day. You can progress it exactly how much you need, whereas sometimes it can be a little harder to progress in calisthenics. However, the strength training principles apply to both of them as they're both forms of strength training. So that includes your principles like frequency, intensity, volume, specificity, progressive overload, and exercise selection. There are more principles, but those are like the main ones. Things like recovery, that's all going to matter to both of them. Protein intake, yes, it has nutrition as a whole, but for the most part, those are the main strength training principles. There's more overlap between them. This is just an oversimplification. But let's start answering the question. Is it possible to combine both calisthenics and weights in the same program? The answer is yes, 100% without a doubt. Plenty of people, including myself, have been able to do it successfully. You just need to understand the nuances and the differences and what exactly your goals in order to combine them properly. Before we continue answering the question, let's just figure out who I am and why am I qualified. So my name is Z, and I studied this in undergrad. I have my bachelor's in human physiology. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I used to train teams, and I've been training people like clients one-on-one for about 5 to 6 years now, and I'm currently in the process of getting my master's. In terms of my actual training background, been running since 2015, doing calisthenics since 2017, and pretty much been hybrid ever since the big C. I don't know if you're still not allowed to say that word on YouTube, but we all know what happened that year. So I've been hybrid pretty much since that year. And just some quick strength stats. I've bench pressed 405 pounds before. I can do full planche push-ups for reps, clap enhancing push-ups, one-arm pull-ups. In terms of leg strength, I have power clean 295, full clean 315 pounds. So I think I'm in a very unique position to talk about this topic and the intersection of calisthenics and weights. I'm not saying all of this to flex, nothing like that, or brag, just to simply qualify myself and showcase that I do know what I'm doing when it comes to this topic, and I have been using these methods in my own training for years. Alright, let's actually get started. So, I call this methods-based because these are going to be methods. They're not going to be exact training programs. They're simply going to be methods you can implement into your current training programs, although some of them do go over training programs just a little bit. So method 1. I don't really know what to call method 1, but it's basically the idea that you can train everything you want to train. You just can't prioritize everything. That is not how it's going to work. For example, if you really want to get a planche and that's your main goal, well then whatever program you're running, your planche work would get priority and the weight trainer will support it. So your format of your workout should be your skill that you're working on. In this case it would be planche, then a strength movement. This could be like a barbell overhead press, and then you could do hypertrophy of the chest with like a chest fly movement, and then tricep extensions. That's just one example of a workout. But if you want to get a strong bench press, then obviously the bench will get the priority. So at the start of your workout, you'll do a top set of bench and maybe 2 back down sets. Then go into your skill work. This could be like planche negatives, banded planche, and then hypertrophy work. So you could do like side laterals, you could do tricep extensions on the ground, like these are bodyweight tricep extensions. So the bench or whatever strength move you want in the gym would also get the priority at the start of the workout when you have the most energy, and then your calisthenics will support that in whatever way it can. If you want to get both and prioritize both, you can do that, but it's kind of an oxymoron to say that you're prioritizing both, because the definition of prioritizing means that you're picking one over the other. So you just need to accept that slower progress is going to happen both of them compared to if you were just focusing on one of them. So method 1 is about the format of your workout. Whether you do the skill first or strength first, hypertrophy should always come at the end of the workout because you want the most energy for either your strength work or your skill work. Even if your goal is aesthetics, you still put that at the end of the workout, in my opinion, because you still want the energy. Again, that includes if hypertrophy / aesthetics are your goals. Alright, let's move on to method 2, which is when you do separate workouts. Let's say you're doing push-pull legs, push-pull legs. At the first push and pull workout of the week, you're going to do planche and front lever, basically do calisthenics for those workouts, train legs however you train legs. And then the second push and pull workout of the week, this is when you do a weight training workout. So your second push day would be bench focus, your second pull day would be something like heavy barbell rows for your main movement, train legs again, and then you have rest and active recovery. So this method is all about just separating the workouts into on completely different days, whereas one day you could do all calisthenics focus, and then later on in the week when you encounter that muscle group or training area again, you do it with weights. And this, I'm just using an example of push-pull legs, but this could really work in any number of splits. You could do this with a full body split, you could do this with an upper-lower split, any sort of split that you're working on right now, you're going to be able to do this separate workout method. And I really like this because, when you go into a workout, your focus is only on calisthenics or weights, and it could just be really easy. And when it comes to like just programming, it's like, oh, I'm only working on planche today, or I'm only working on bench press today. So in a lot of ways, it simplifies your workouts, makes your training easy to program, in my opinion. I've done this method for quite a few years, and I'm just really a fan of this. I usually do this in the push-pull legs workout, but then again, you could really do this in any training split that you're currently doing, and it works. Just simply separate the calisthenics from the weight training workouts. Method 3. A lot of people are probably going to say this is a cop-out, which is that you use calisthenics entirely for your upper body and use weights for your lower body. And I don't think this is a cop-out method because at its core, calisthenics, you are able to use calisthenics to train your entire body. You can do things like pistol squats, dragon squats, lotus squats, you could sprint, you could jump, you could hike, all sorts of things. For your lower body, you have Nordic curls. There's so many body weight variations. So you don't necessarily have to use weights for your lower body, but you can get really strong and aesthetic just using calisthenics for your upper body. And a lot of people do this method without even realizing, and they just use weights like barbell squats, maybe some RDLs, calves training with weights. So they just separate their upper body and lower body. But even if you're doing this, I still recommend that you learn something like a pistol squat and just a Nordic, just to really just say, even if you're mostly doing barbell squats or RDLs, that, just because you're focused on calisthenics probably for the upper body skills, I still think there's something to it where to be able to say you can master your body weight, lower body strength when it comes to like Nordic curls and pistol squats. So just food for thought. You don't have to do it. You don't have to listen to me, take my advice. But even if you are using weights for lower body, I still recommend you learn Nordic curl and pistol squat at the very least. And my advice to you if you're doing this method is your lower sessions to be mostly about strength. Yes, you could do hypertrophy as well. I'm actually a fan of training legs seriously while still doing calisthenics. I think it's a lot of fear-mongering and myths going around where you can't train legs or that calisthenics athletes don't train legs. I don't think I have the biggest legs, but I definitely think they're very proportional to my body weight. Do they hurt me? Absolutely, but I don't think it makes it impossible. But that being said, you still probably want your lower sessions to be mostly about strength, just so your legs don't get completely massive. It is still possible to do calisthenics with massive legs, don't get me wrong. With that being said, you probably want the majority of your sessions to be about strength when it comes to using weights for lower body. And this method could allow you to train upper body to your lower body in a 2-to-1 ratio or potentially 3-to-1, especially if you're doing lower body strength workouts. That just means like for every 2 upper body workouts, you do 1 lower body workout, or for every 3 upper body workouts, you're doing one lower body workout. I wouldn't push it a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. That's just ridiculous. I think a 2-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 works really well. Of course, you can still do 1-to-1 ratio, but if you already have this mindset where you're only going to use calisthenics for your upper body and weights for your lower body, then you probably want to do a 2-to-1 ratio and 3-to-1 ratio, because you're probably choosing this method just because you want to maintain and have strong legs, not necessarily like big legs, or it's the main priority. So you could totally get away with doing this in a 2-to-1 ratio or even a 3-to-1 ratio. Again, I don't recommend going to 4-to-1 or something ridiculous like 5-to-1. Please train your legs. They're like the second most important group to train after your heart, in my opinion. Well, that's a topic for another video. Method 4, weighted calisthenics. This could be its own video in itself, but there are a lot of ways to introduce weighted calisthenics into your routine. Whatever training program you're doing, whatever split you're doing, you could really just keep doing it and just incorporate weighted calisthenics with dips and pull-ups. And the reason why you want to do dips and pull-ups, because they're essential to calisthenics, both the body weight versions and the weighted version. And again, I'm going to make a separate video soon about relative strength versus absolute strength. But you want to, in calisthenics, you want to keep your same weight while getting stronger. And one of the ways you can measure this relative strength increase is if you're keeping the same body weight, but your moves, like your weighted dips and weighted pull-ups, are getting stronger. So if your weight is staying the same and these two movements are getting stronger and better over time, then by default, your relative strength has to increase. And as your relative strength increase, you will get better calisthenics. Now, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying as long as you get better at weighted dips and weighted pull-ups, you will instantly get like a better planche and front lever. There will be a lot of carryover, and the potential for you to get better at planche and front lever will be really high, but it's not necessarily exactly 100% strength carryover. At the end of the day, if you're getting stronger, yes, your planche and front lever will get stronger, and it does work like that, but it's not exactly like a linear 1-to-1, so don't be confused by that. Yes, you will get stronger at your skills, but there's no guarantee necessarily, but it's a very strong likelihood, and you will like most likely get stronger in like 95% of the cases. There are like some special cases where if you get stronger at weighted dips and weighted pull-ups, your skills will not get stronger, or they could even decrease, but that's like a small minority of cases. For the most part, if you get stronger at weighted dips and weighted pull-ups, your calisthenics will get better, especially if your body weight stays the same. And not only will it help you track and increase your relative strength, but it's also just going to help you get aesthetic and strong in the right muscles. One of the ways you improve your relative strength is that you improve the hypertrophy, basically the muscle mass in certain areas. You don't want an overall muscle mass increase. You just want muscle mass increase in the right areas. So things like your shoulders, your lats, maybe your chest for some movements, but not, it's really like your shoulders and lats. And just, these movements are going to put you through large ranges of motion. They're probably going to push you close to failure, which is really good for hypertrophy. And yeah, so you could even have a separate day in your routine where it's just weighted calisthenics, depending on your training split. I've done some splits where my entire workout for the day is just weighted pull-ups and dips. Like, that's all I'm doing in the gym. I just do 4 sets weighted pull-ups, 4 sets weighted dips, and maybe finish with 1 set of body weight for each, just to get some endurance work in quickly. And I call it a day. Super short, efficient workouts. But these are like for special training programs where I only do weighted calisthenics in a certain day. But again, it's going to be different depending on whatever routine and training split you have. But again, you could literally keep whatever you're doing and like just change one of your exercises. Say you don't do any dips at all. Say you do like a tricep machine push down. Instead of doing that, you could just start doing weighted dips. And if you don't do weighted pull-ups currently, you could take out one of your vertical pull movements like a lat pull down and swap it for weighted pull-ups. Of course, exercise caution if you're completely new to weighted calisthenics. Do it slowly over time, like work up, especially weighted dips. You don't want your sternum to flare with just any tendon issues in the sternum. So a lot of people would tend to get sternum pain. It's pretty easy to avoid if you just build it up slowly over time. It's just like if you're trying like a new exercise, just like test it out, see how your body responds to it, and then slowly progress it over time. It's a completely new stimulus to you, especially if you've never done like body weight dips before. So just make sure you're solid on body weight pull-ups and dips before you start incorporating weighted dips and pull-ups. Alright, method 5. You could do block training, also known as mesocycles. So a mesocycle is basically a period of time, at least 4 weeks, probably no more than 16 weeks. I think most people consider it 8 to 12 weeks of training, but at least 4 weeks, no more than 16. And basically this just means you have different goals for different blocks of training. For example, at the start of the year, you could do a mesocycle where it's calisthenics, work capacity, focus, and you're just going to maintain your major lifts in the gyms with a lot lower frequency, where you only do it like once a month, or like once a week, your major lifts in the gym. And then after you finish this first mesocycle, you could begin a mesocycle where you're using weights and focusing on the strength, so like getting your bench press numbers up, getting your deadlift numbers up, and then you'll drop down, you use your calisthenics skills to drop down to a maintenance level with lower volume. And then after that, you could do a mesocycle of calisthenics hypertrophy, and then you could do a fourth mesocycle after that, where you're using like a weights power focus, where you're doing like a lot of power based movements like Olympic lifts, jump contrast training. So you can really plan out your training program in terms of mesocycles depending on your goals is. And I like this. It does complicate your workouts a little bit on a large scale level, not really on a small scale level like day to day or week to week. It just, in terms of long term planning, it could complicate it, in chunks of time, but it's not that complicated. It basically allows you to push like one quality harder without completely letting go of other qualities. And it's going to reduce the competing goals. Like if you were trying to learn both a planche and increase your bench press, it's going to eliminate that competition and basically allow you to focus on your bench press for a few weeks and then focus on planche for other weeks. And I think it's great for breaking plateaus because you should be getting stronger overall throughout the year. You may not be getting stronger at specific movements, but as a person, as an athlete, you should be getting stronger throughout the year. So when you come back, you're starting from a higher strength potential. Even if you take a break from bench press, you should have a higher strength potential when you come back to that movement. Same thing with like planches and things like that. You should always have a stronger strength potential, even if you're not getting better at that specific movement pattern. And probably the best reason for this is, it's going to keep your training exciting. You have a few weeks focused on calisthenics, a few weeks focused on weights. You could bounce back and forth. You could even do it in terms of like muscle groups, like you do a mesocycle on shoulder focus, where you're going crazy about like your shoulder strength. So that includes like planches, handstand push-ups, overhead press. And then your next mesocycle could be all about like your chest. So bench press, fly movements, planche push-ups works your chest pretty well. So you can even do your mesocycles in terms of muscle focus. And then your third mesocycle after that could be focusing on like lats training. So, there are different ways to do method 5, really. And like I said, it's going to let you alternate between like your relative strength goals and absolute strength goals, or you could do a mix and match, It's really up to you. The final method is going to be the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule. What this basically means is that 80% of your training could be calisthenics, 20% could be weight training, or you could switch it, like 80% weight training, 20% calisthenics, or 90%, 10% to 1. And this is really good for people if you have very specific goals. Maybe you want most of your training to be calisthenics focused, but for some reason you just want a really strong squat or really strong deadlift. You're allowed to do that. It's your life, it's your workout, it's what you want to get out of the two different mediums. So if you want to get really strong with calisthenics, but you also care about having a really strong squat, then you could only do barbell squats in the gym and like only use the gym for barbell squats. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Or if you love lifting weights, lifting some iron, but you really just want to get good at handstands, like learn one arm handstand one day, you could do that, where that's like the only calisthenics skill you focus on, and every other part of your training is about like using weights, getting bigger, getting stronger in the gym, increasing your numbers. So you're totally allowed to do that. There's literally nothing stopping you from having most of your training be one sport. You don't have to do it 50-50 or like 60-40. It is completely up to you how much of one sport over the other you want. Or another method you could do is that if you're doing like primarily gym focus, you could just start your workout with just high rep bodyweight circuits. Just like if you're doing back day in the gym, you could start or end your workout with like, you could do like every minute on the minute, try to get like 5 pull-ups, or you can't start your actual gym back workout till you finish like 30 pull-ups, or you end every single chest day with as many fun push-up variations as you can. So, that could be another way that you could implement the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule. Just keep your workouts fun, test your calisthenics strength at the start and end of your workout. You could do like burnout sets. Burnout sets don't really work in my opinion, but some people just aren't doing burnout sets to be efficient. They just generally enjoy burnout sets. So you can end your workouts with the calisthenics burnout set, And the reason why I call these methods instead of like training programs or training advice is because you can really mix and match all these methods. Like, you don't have to only do method 1, only do method 3. You can do like method 4 and method 6. Like, method 4 weighted calisthenics could be how you achieve the 80-20 rule. You could do method 4 in method 2. Like, you could really just pull whatever you want from each method and combine them to create whatever training program. And that's why I didn't say like training programs. I said these are methods. These are just advices on how you can mix calisthenics and weights together in the same workout. So hopefully that simplifies things for a lot of you out there, especially if you're a beginner. When I was a beginner, I didn't really know how to mix it too. Like, I was doing like 2-hour long workouts. Like, especially like, I think it was around like 2021. And this was when I was really getting into hybrid training. I would literally do 2-hour workouts. I was doing push-pull legs. I would do like an hour of calisthenics, then do an hour of weights for push, repeat it for my pull workouts, then do like an hour leg workout, and then take a rest day and then do it all again. Like, I had no business doing 2-hour long workouts. So that's literally just because I didn't know how to combine calisthenics and weights. I thought if I wanted to mix the two, I had to do a full calisthenics workout, then I'd do a full weights workout. And I don't know about you, but I didn't really have 2 hours then. I definitely don't have 2 hours now to dedicate to workouts. Like, you can do that, do an entire calisthenics workout, then do an entire weights workout. Your body will adjust to the volume and work capacity over time, but you're going to be in the gym for hours. Your body's going to be tired and sore until it adjusts to that. Even when it adjusts to that, like, do you really want to be spending 2 hours in the gym? More power to you. If you have all the time in the world, then by all means do that, but hopefully you see after this video there are smarter methods to combining calisthenics and weights in the same training program. Let me know if you guys disagree with anything I said. I'm always happy to have a healthy discussion with you in the comments. Or you can message me on Instagram at Calisthenics. Or just let me know if this video brought up any questions to you, and I'll try to clear it up in the comments or in a future video. And if you like topics like this, I'm really passionate about the intersection of these two things. This is pretty much how I train, is both calisthenics and weights. If you asked me to pick one, I couldn't. Like, I love them both. I love a lot of aspects of both of them. So I'm planning on doing a lot more videos about the intersection and strength training principles for combining both of them. Also just calisthenics. So if you have any ideas for future videos, let me know too. And if you want an actual training program, like an actual training split on how to do calisthenics, weights, or both of them, then DM me on Instagram. We could talk about how that would work. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you all.